The handcuffs clicked around Gerald Whitmore's wrists as his entire hotel staff erupted in applause. 30 seconds earlier, the racist hotel owner had been screaming at Dr. Amelia Richardson, a black woman, to get out of his luxury hotel because her kind doesn't belong here. Now he stood frozen, watching FBI agents read him his rights, while Amelia held up the deed proving she'd bought his hotel 3 weeks ago. The security footage of him saying, "I don't serve black people," played on every lobby screen. But the sweetest revenge? His own discriminated concierge had been secretly recording everything for 5 years, waiting for this exact moment. The marble floor of the Grand Meridian Hotel had been polished to mirror perfection, but it couldn't reflect the ugly scene unfolding in the lobby that sunny Tuesday morning. Gerald Whitmore, the hotel's owner for the past 30 years, stood with his arms crossed, blocking the path of a well-dressed black woman, while 3 police officers watched in confusion. "I don't care what papers you have," Gerald spat, his face red with indignation. "This is still my hotel for the next 2 hours, and I decide who stays here." The woman, Dr. Amelia Richardson, remained remarkably calm as she held up the deed of sale, the official transfer documents, and her new owner's credentials. But it was the 4th document she pulled from her briefcase that made Gerald's face drain of all color. A court order for his immediate arrest on charges of systematic discrimination, filed by the Department of Justice based on 3 years of evidence she'd been secretly gathering. The police officers stepped forward, handcuffs gleaming in the morning light, streaming through the lobby's grand windows, while every guest and employee in the magnificent hotel watched their racist owner's empire crumble in real time. If you've ever witnessed the moment when prejudice meets poetic justice, when years of discrimination finally face their reckoning, then you understand the power of what's about to unfold. Hit that subscribe button and join the Acts of Depth family, because this story will remind you that sometimes the person you try to keep out is exactly the one destined to take over. 6 weeks earlier, Dr. Amelia Richardson had stood outside the same hotel, reading the "For Sale by Owner" sign that Gerald Whitmore had reluctantly posted after a series of discrimination lawsuits had finally caught up with him. She knew about those lawsuits intimately. She'd been funding them anonymously through her foundation for the past 3 years. Every black family turned away, every Latino couple told there were no vacancies, every interracial couple denied their reservation. Amelia had documented them all through a network of civil rights attorneys and private investigators. At 38, Amelia had built her fortune in biotech, developing a revolutionary treatment for sickle cell anemia that had made her one of the wealthiest black women in America. But money had never been her end goal. It was simply the tool she used to dismantle systems of oppression, one strategic acquisition at a time. The Grand Meridian Hotel, with its 100-year history and prime location in the heart of Charleston, South Carolina, represented everything she stood to change. The hotel was a landmark, a 5-story architectural masterpiece with 200 rooms, crystal chandeliers that had witnessed a century of celebrations, and gardens that stretched across 3 acres of prime real estate. It had also been, for the entirety of Gerald Whitmore's ownership, a fortress of exclusion wrapped in Southern hospitality. The discrimination was never blatant enough for criminal charges, just mysterious booking errors, sudden maintenance issues, or price quotes that tripled when certain voices called to make reservations. Amelia's first interaction with Gerald had been carefully orchestrated. She'd sent her white attorney, David Chen, whose name didn't match his appearance in ways that confused people like Gerald, to begin negotiations. Gerald had been eager to sell to what he assumed was a Chinese investment firm, never bothering to research that Chen Enterprises was actually owned by Amelia Richardson. The negotiations had gone smoothly, with Gerald practically gloating about unloading the property before the feds make my life even more difficult. But Amelia hadn't wanted just to buy the hotel. She wanted Gerald to show his true colors one final time, in front of witnesses, in a way that would seal his fate completely. So she'd planned her arrival for the morning of the transfer, 2 hours before the official handover, when Gerald would still technically be in charge. She'd made a reservation under her own name, paid in full, for the presidential suite. That morning she'd dressed carefully, a cream-colored suit that emphasized her success without screaming for attention, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo, her grandmother's pearl necklace the only jewelry besides her wedding ring. She'd arrived in a modest rental car rather than her usual Mercedes, accompanied only by her assistant Marcus, a young black man fresh out of Howard University who'd been documenting everything on hidden cameras. The moment she'd walked through the Grand Meridian's revolving doors, she'd felt the weight of history. These walls had seen the civil rights era, had maintained their whites-only policy until federal law forced them to change, had found subtle ways to continue that legacy even after integration. The lobby was magnificent, marble columns, a fountain featuring bronze swans, fresh flowers on every surface, but it was a beauty built on exclusion. Gerald had been at the front desk, micromanaging his staff as always. He was 67, with silver hair he kept perfectly styled, and the kind of deep tan that came from golf courses and yacht clubs. He'd looked up when Amelia approached, and she'd watched his expression shift from professional welcome to suspicious assessment to outright hostility in the span of 3 seconds. "Can I help you?" he'd asked, his tone suggesting he'd prefer to do anything but. "I have a reservation," Amelia had said pleasantly. "Dr. Amelia Richardson, the presidential suite." Gerald had made a show of checking the computer, typing loudly, frowning at the screen. "I don't see any reservation under that name." "That's strange," Amelia had replied, pulling out her confirmation. "I have the email right here. Paid in full, confirmed last week." Gerald had barely glanced at the paper. "Must be a system error. Besides, the presidential suite is undergoing maintenance." "Really?" Amelia had kept her voice level. "Because I can see from here that someone's currently on the balcony of that suite enjoying breakfast." Gerald's jaw had tightened. "That's a long-term guest." "Look, I don't know what kind of scam you're trying to pull, but—" "Scam?" Amelia had interrupted softly. "I'm a paying customer with a confirmed reservation. What exactly makes you think I'm running a scam?" The lobby had grown quiet as other guests sensed the tension. A white couple checking in at the next counter glanced over nervously. The concierge, a middle-aged black woman named Diane, who'd worked there for 15 years, kept her eyes down, but her phone camera up, discreetly recording what she'd seen happen too many times before. "Look," Gerald had said, his voice taking on what he probably thought was a reasonable tone, "I'm sure there are other hotels in the area that would be more suitable for your needs. There's a Comfort Inn about 3 miles away that might have availability." "More suitable," Amelia had repeated. "What makes a Comfort Inn more suitable for me than the hotel where I have a confirmed reservation?" Gerald's face had flushed. "Don't try to make this about something it's not. We simply don't have room for you. The hotel is fully booked." "You just offered to check in that couple," Amelia pointed out, nodding toward the white couple who were now hurriedly completing their registration. "So you do have rooms available." "Those are different circumstances," Gerald had snapped. "They're members of our preferred guest program." "I'd like to sign up for that program," Amelia had said calmly. "It's invitation only." "What are the criteria for an invitation?" Gerald had leaned forward, lowering his voice but not enough that the growing crowd couldn't hear. "The criteria is that I say who gets invited, and I'm telling you you're not welcome here. Do I need to call security?" "Please do," Amelia had replied. "In fact, call the police as well. I'd like to file a complaint about being denied service at a place of public accommodation based on my race." Gerald had laughed, an ugly sound that echoed off the marble. "Good luck proving that. I refuse service to lots of people. It's my right as a business owner." That's when Amelia had smiled, the kind of smile that made Marcus step back slightly because he'd seen it before, right before she'd taken down a pharmaceutical company that had been price gouging medications in black communities. "Actually, Mr. Whitmore, I think you'll find that in exactly 93 minutes it won't be your right anymore." "What are you talking about?" Gerald had demanded. "I'm talking about the fact that at 11 o'clock this morning, this hotel becomes the property of Richardson Hospitality Group, my company." She'd pulled out the sales documents, spreading them on the marble counter. "You're currently denying service to your new boss." Gerald had gone very still, his eyes scanning the documents with growing horror. His signature was there, along with the signature of a Richardson, CEO. He'd never bothered to research who a Richardson was, had never imagined it could be the black woman standing in front of him. "This is impossible," he'd whispered. David Chen said the buyer was my attorney? Yes, David handled the negotiations, completely legal, completely binding, and in 90 minutes you'll be trespassing on my property. Amelia had checked her watch. Though I think we both know you won't last that long. That's when Gerald had made his fatal mistake. Instead of accepting defeat, he doubled down. This sale isn't final until 11. Until then, I'm still the owner, and I want you out of my hotel immediately. Your hotel? Amelia had laughed. Oh, Mr. Whitmore, this stopped being your hotel the moment you started turning away paying customers based on the color of their skin. You just didn't know it yet. Gerald had grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. I need police at the Grand Meridian Hotel immediately. We have trespassers refusing to leave the premises. While they waited for the police, Amelia had made her own calls. First to David Chen, confirming he was on his way with the federal marshals. Then to the FBI field office, where Agent Sarah Coleman was waiting for her signal. Finally to the news station where reporter Jennifer Martinez had been investigating the Grand Meridian's discrimination practices for months. The crowd in the lobby had grown. Guests abandoned their breakfast in the restaurant to watch. Staff members found excuses to linger nearby. Several people were now openly recording on their phones. Gerald paced behind the desk like a caged animal, muttering about property rights and reverse discrimination. Marcus had whispered to Amelia, "Are you sure about this? We could just wait until 11. Take over quietly." "Quietly doesn't create change," Amelia had replied. "Gerald has hidden behind plausible deniability for 30 years. Today he shows everyone exactly who he is." The police had arrived in 12 minutes. 3 officers, led by Sergeant James Mitchell, a black man in his 40s who'd responded to calls at the Grand Meridian before. His expression when he saw Gerald and Amelia facing off across the front desk suggested he knew exactly what kind of call this would be. "Mr. Whitmore," Sergeant Mitchell had said carefully, "what seems to be the problem?" "This woman is trespassing," Gerald had said immediately. "I've asked her to leave and she's refusing." "Ma'am," Sergeant Mitchell had turned to Amelia, "I have a confirmed reservation that Mr. Whitmore is refusing to honor. I believe it's because I'm black. I also have these documents showing that in," she checked her watch, "78 minutes, I'll own this hotel." Sergeant Mitchell had studied the documents, his eyebrows rising. "Mr. Whitmore, is this accurate? Did you sell the hotel to this woman?" "I sold it to Chen Enterprises," Gerald had protested. "This is some kind of fraud." David Chen chose that moment to walk through the revolving doors, his presence commanding immediate attention. At 6'2" with prematurely gray hair, he cut an imposing figure in his tailored navy suit. Behind him walked 2 federal marshals and Agent Sarah Coleman from the FBI, her badge prominently displayed. "There's no fraud here, Mr. Whitmore," David said smoothly. "Chen Enterprises is a wholly owned subsidiary of Richardson Hospitality Group. Every document you signed clearly indicated this in the disclosure sections. You did read the disclosures, didn't you?" Gerald's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The lobby had become completely silent except for the gentle splash of the fountain. Every eye was fixed on the unfolding drama. Agent Coleman stepped forward. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm Agent Coleman with the FBI. We've been investigating complaints of systematic discrimination at this hotel for 3 years. Dr. Richardson has been assisting our investigation." "This is entrapment," Gerald shouted, his composure finally cracking completely. "She set me up." "No one set you up," Amelia said quietly. "I gave you every opportunity to simply honor my reservation like any other guest. You chose discrimination, just like you chose it when you turned away the Jackson family last month. Just like you chose it when you canceled the Williams wedding reception. Just like you chose it when you told your staff to quote triple rates to anyone who sounded ethnic on the phone. How do you know about—" Gerald stopped himself, but it was too late. "Because Diane here," Amelia nodded to the concierge, "has been documenting every incident for the past 5 years. She came to me 18 months ago, desperate to stop what was happening, but afraid of losing her job. I promised her that not only would she keep her job, but she'd be promoted to general manager under new ownership." Diane stepped forward, her phone still recording. Every black family turned away. Every Latino couple told we were booked. Every interracial couple who mysteriously lost their reservation. I have dates, times, names, and in many cases, recordings of Mr. Whitmore specifically instructing us to discriminate. The two federal marshals moved closer to Gerald, who backed against the wall behind my front desk. His perfect tan had faded to a sickly pallor. Additionally, Agent Coleman continued, we have evidence of tax evasion, where Mr. Whitmore recorded these rejected reservations as completed stays to inflate his books for loan applications. That's federal fraud on top of civil rights violations. You can't prove any of this, Gerald said desperately. It's all hearsay and disgruntled employees. Amelia pulled out her phone and played a recording. Gerald's voice filled the lobby. I don't care if they have a reservation. Find an excuse, maintenance, overbooking, anything. I'm not having my hotel turned into some kind of urban establishment. This place has standards. That was recorded last Tuesday, Amelia said, when the Thompson family tried to check in for their anniversary celebration. You personally instructed the staff to tell them the hotel had a water main break. They spent their anniversary night driving around looking for accommodations. Jennifer Martinez from Channel 7 News walked in at that moment, her camera crew already rolling. Mr. Whitmore? Jennifer Martinez, would you care to comment on these allegations of systematic discrimination? Gerald looked around wildly, realizing he was completely surrounded. Guests were recording on their phones. His own staff was testifying against him. Federal agents were ready to arrest him, and the woman he'd tried to humiliate was about to take everything he'd built. Wait, he said suddenly, his voice taking on a wheedling tone. Dr. Richardson, surely we can work something out. The sale isn't final yet. I could refuse to complete the transfer. You seem like a reasonable woman. What if I apologize? What if I agree to whatever policies you want? An apology? Amelia's voice was ice. You want to apologize now? Where was that apology for the hundreds of families you turned away? Where was that apology for the employees you forced to participate in discrimination or lose their jobs? Where was that apology when you had the chance to simply let me check into the room I paid for? She walked around the desk to face him directly. You've had 30 years to apologize, Mr. Whitmore. 30 years to change. Instead, you got worse. You got craftier about hiding it. You destroyed people's celebrations, vacations, honeymoons, and anniversaries because they didn't look like you. And now you want to apologize because you're facing consequences? Please, Gerald said, and for the first time, his voice cracked with genuine fear. I'll lose everything. My reputation, my freedom, your reputation. Marcus spoke up for the first time, his young voice carrying across the lobby. What about the reputation of every black person you made feel unwelcome and unworthy? What about my grandmother, who saved for 2 years to stay here for her 70th birthday, only to be told there were no rooms available while she could see empty rooms from the street? Gerald turned to Marcus in surprise. Your grandmother? Eleanor Washington, March 15th, 2019. You told her the hotel was closed for renovations. She cried in her car for an hour. She'd been dreaming of staying here since she was a little girl when black people weren't even allowed through the front door. She thought things had changed. The weight of Marcus's words settled over the lobby like a heavy blanket. Several of the watching guests had tears in their eyes. Diane, the concierge, was openly crying, remembering that day and so many others like it. Even Sergeant Mitchell, who'd maintained professional composure throughout, looked affected. I remember her, Diane said softly. She was so dignified, so polite. She showed me pictures of this hotel from the 1960s, told me how her mother had worked here as a maid but had never been allowed to use the front entrance. She said staying here would be like completing a circle, proving how far we've come. Diane looked at Gerald with undisguised contempt. And you broke her heart. Amelia checked her watch. 43 minutes, Mr. Whitmore. In 43 minutes, this becomes my hotel, but you don't have to wait that long to leave. She turned to Agent Coleman. I believe you have warrants? Agent Coleman nodded, pulling out an envelope. Gerald Whitmore, you're under arrest for violations of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act, and federal fraud charges related to falsified financial records. You have the right to remain silent. As the federal marshals moved forward with handcuffs, Gerald made one last desperate play. You think you've won? You think taking my hotel changes anything? This town, these people, they don't want you here. You'll fail within a year. No one will stay at a hotel run by someone like you. The lobby erupted in response. I'll stay here, called out an elderly white woman who'd been watching from near the restaurant. My husband and I have been members here for 20 years, but we've watched you turn people away and said nothing. We were cowards. Not anymore. One by one, voices rose from around the lobby. Guests, staff members, even people who'd wandered in from the street drawn by the commotion. They pledged their support, their business, their determination to see the Grand Meridian become what it should have always been, a place of welcome for everyone. Gerald watched his world reshape itself in real time. The staff he'd thought were loyal were applauding his arrest. The guests he'd carefully cultivated were rejecting his values. The town he'd thought shared his prejudices was choosing progress over the past. As the marshals led him toward the door, Gerald turned back one last time. Why? He asked Amelia. You're rich, successful. You could have bought any hotel. Why mine? Amelia walked over to him, close enough that only he and the nearest officers could hear her response. Because my grandmother worked here too, Mr. Whitmore. Dorothy Richardson. You probably don't remember her. She was just another invisible black woman cleaning your toilets. She worked here for 40 years, saving every penny to put my mother through college. She died 2 years ago, but before she passed, she told me about this place, about how beautiful it was and how ugly its beauty was built on. She said if I ever got the chance, I should try to clean it up properly. She stepped back, raising her voice so everyone could hear. Your hotel was built on exclusion, Mr. Whitmore. Mine will be built on inclusion. Your hotel profited from discrimination. Mine will profit from diversity. Your hotel was a monument to the past. Mine will be a bridge to the future. The marshals led Gerald out through the same revolving doors he'd used to exclude so many. The crowd in the lobby burst into spontaneous applause. Jennifer Martinez was speaking rapidly into her camera, already framing this as the story it would become. Not just about one hotel or one racist owner, but about transformation, justice, and the power of standing up to discrimination. Amelia looked at her watch. 28 minutes until the official transfer. She turned to Diane. I know the paperwork isn't final yet, but would you mind showing me to the presidential suite? I'd like to see what we're working with. Diane smiled, the first genuine smile she'd worn at work in years. It would be my absolute pleasure, Dr. Richardson. Right this way. As they walked toward the elevator, the crowd parted respectfully. Marcus followed, still recording, still documenting this historical moment. The presidential suite was on the top floor, a magnificent space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, separate living and dining areas, and a marble bathroom larger than most hotel rooms. It's beautiful, Amelia said, running her hand along the antique furniture, but it's been a fortress for too long. I want this suite to host celebrations for all families. Quinceañeras, bar mitzvahs, family reunions. I want children who look like Marcus's grandmother to dream of staying here and know that dream is achievable. What about the staff? Diane asked nervously. Some of them followed orders even when they knew it was wrong. Like me. Amelia turned to her with understanding. You documented everything at great personal risk. Others were just trying to survive. Everyone gets a clean slate, but they'll need to commit to new values. We'll have training, real training, not just checking boxes. We'll hire from the communities Gerald excluded, and we'll tell the truth about this hotel's history while we build its better future. At exactly 11 a.m., David Chen placed the final transfer documents on the antique desk in the presidential suite. Amelia signed her name with her grandmother's fountain pen, the one Dorothy Richardson had bought with her first paycheck from the Grand Meridian Hotel in 1962. The ink flowed dark blue across the page, transforming ownership, transforming history. Congratulations, David said. You are now officially the owner of the Grand Meridian Hotel. Through the suite's windows, they could see news vans gathering in the parking lot. The story had already gone viral. Videos of Gerald's arrest, Amelia's revelation, and the community's response were spreading across social media faster than anyone could track. The hashtag Grand Meridian Justice was trending nationally. Amelia walked out onto the balcony, the same one she'd pointed out to Gerald when he'd claimed the suite was under maintenance. The city spread out below, a patchwork of old and new, history and possibility. Diane, Marcus, and David joined her, along with several other staff members who'd made their way upstairs. "So what now?" Marcus asked, his earlier emotion replaced by excitement about the future. "Now we work," Amelia said simply. "We have 3 months to transform this place before the grand reopening. New policies, new staff, new mission. But first, there's something I need to do." She led them back downstairs to the lobby, which was still buzzing with excitement. The fountain continued its gentle splash. The chandeliers cast their elegant light, but something fundamental had changed in the atmosphere. The oppressive weight of exclusion had lifted. Amelia walked to the front desk where a brass plaque read, "Gerald Whitmore, proprietor since 1994. She removed it carefully, not with anger but with purpose, and handed it to Marcus. "This goes to the museum. We don't hide history, we learn from it." From her briefcase, she pulled out a new plaque, "The Grand Meridian Hotel, where every guest is grand. Dr. Amelia Richardson, proprietor, in memory of Dorothy Richardson and Eleanor Washington, who dreamed of a day when these doors would open for all." As she mounted the new plaque, the remaining staff and guests applauded again. But Amelia raised her hand for silence. "There's one more thing. Marcus, would you call your grandmother?" Marcus looked confused but dialed the number. After a brief conversation, he handed the phone to Amelia. "Mrs. Washington? This is Dr. Amelia Richardson. I'm the new owner of the Grand Meridian Hotel. I understand you tried to stay here in 2019 for your 70th birthday. Yes, ma'am, I know what happened. That's why I'm calling. Your grandson has told me your 73rd birthday is next month. I would be honored if you would be our first official guest under new management. The presidential suite will be yours for the entire week, as our apology for the inexcusable treatment you received." Even from across the lobby, people could hear Eleanor Washington crying through the phone. Marcus was crying too, not bothering to hide it. When Amelia hung up, she turned to address everyone present. "The Grand Meridian has been standing for 100 years. For too long, it stood for exclusion, for the idea that some people deserve luxury while others deserve humiliation. That ends today. But ending something isn't enough. We have to begin something better." She looked at each face in the crowd, making eye contact with guests, staff, and reporters alike. "We're going to make this the most inclusive luxury hotel in America. We're going to prove that diversity isn't just morally right, it's good business. We're going to show that when you open your doors to everyone, everyone benefits." Jennifer Martinez pushed forward with her microphone. "Dr. Richardson, what do you say to people who might claim this is reverse discrimination? That you're just replacing one form of prejudice with another?" Amelia smiled. "I say look around this lobby right now. White face, black face, brown face, all standing together, all welcome. That's not reverse discrimination. That's what America is supposed to look like. Gerald Whitmore had 30 years to create this environment and chose not to. I'm choosing differently." "What about Gerald Whitmore himself?" another reporter asked. "Any message for him?" Amelia considered the question. "I hope he uses this time to reflect on the harm he's caused and the opportunities he missed. He could have been remembered as a successful businessman who ran a grand hotel. Instead, he'll be remembered as someone who let hate poison his legacy. That's not vindictive. It's tragic." 6 months later, the Grand Meridian Hotel held its grand reopening. Eleanor Washington cut the ribbon with golden scissors, wearing the same dress she'd planned to wear 3 years earlier. The hotel was booked solid for the next year, with reservations from families who'd never felt welcome before and corporations eager to support inclusive businesses. Gerald Whitmore was serving a 5-year federal sentence, though he'd be eligible for parole in 3. His lawyer had reached out once, suggesting Gerald wanted to apologize properly, to make amends. Amelia had sent back a simple response. "Apologies are for those he hurt. Amends can be made through actions, not words. The presidential suite had been renamed the Unity Suite and had hosted 17 celebrations in its first month alone. Weddings, anniversaries, graduations, and birthdays representing every culture and combination imaginable. The walls that had once echoed with exclusion now rang with languages from around the world. Diane, promoted to general manager as promised, implemented a scholarship program for hospitality students from underserved communities. Marcus finished his documentation project and created a museum exhibit about the hotel's transformation, installed permanently in the lobby for all to see and learn from. And in the Unity Suite, on a quiet evening when the hotel was full but peaceful, Amelia stood again on that balcony with her grandmother's fountain pen in her hand. She thought about Dorothy Richardson, who'd cleaned these rooms but never slept in them. She thought about Eleanor Washington, whose dignity had survived despite attempts to destroy it. She thought about Gerald Whitmore, whose hatred had ultimately destroyed only himself. The sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere in the hotel, a child laughed. Music drifted from a wedding reception. The front doors, those grand revolving doors that had once been barriers, spun freely, welcoming all who approached. The Acts of Depth family knows that true justice isn't just about punishing wrongdoing. It's about building something better from the ruins of prejudice. If this story reminded you that change is possible when we have the courage to demand it and the resources to implement it, share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, and remember, the doors that were closed to your grandparents can be opened by your generation. Sometimes it just takes one person with the keys and the courage to use